Hi everyone, my name's Leslie Webble. I've been a product manager for 3 years. I've ran a startup for two. Today I want to talk about what is a product. What is the definition of a product? That definition can be really different for a lot of people depending on the industry that you work in. Like if I was a product manager for Skechers or New Balance, what a product is very different from what SaaS is for a software startup, right? Or a B2B business. But really, what a product is, in my definition, and you'll develop your own definition of what a product is probably through like reading other videos or, reading other books or watching other videos, right? And my definition, this is how I think about it, is a product is something that creates value in the eyes of the customer. For instance, this video, most likely you're interested in watching is because you are looking to learn more about product management and essentially what makes that up. Now, if you're this dog, that dog bone looks really great. They see value in that because that's going to provide some sort form of satisfaction. There's other startup advice gurus that might say like, hey, the seven deadly sins, lust, greed. Tinder is an app made for lust or greed. Like Robinhood is an app made for making more money. That is one way to kind of think about that relationship. But I think what I'm talking about here is what consumers value is really different from everyone, right? It's different from how you see the world and how another person down the street might see something, right? Now, products are used as input into markets to get back revenue in the form of cash. Companies keep making products because they can sell it in the market and they get cash in exchange for their efforts, right? And then, of course, keeping costs below, kind of going above how much they actually make, right? So the more dog bones we make and the more dog bones we sell in that market, we'll get cash for that up to a certain point, into the market's equilibrium, right? And then we're getting into the topic about microeconomics, and that's another video for another time to talk about products and markets. But all you need to understand is that first, products are something that is created in the eyes of the customer and that they're used by companies to basically sell into market to get revenue back. Now, there's a lot of uh, factors that affect this relationship, right? Who the customer is, what is the supply of materials to make the product, what's the design of the product, right? Apple is really good on design, and people keep wanting Apple products because they focus so much energy and time into the design of it. Or the functionality might be kind of something really important. I don't need it to be beautiful, I just need it to work like a shovel, right? And who the customer is also really matters. This cat here doesn't want a dog bone. It's a cat, right? And then the total supply of that product into the market is also a factor in that. And then presentation, right? So communicating or marketing your product is just as important into that relationship between the product and the market, or the really, I should say, the product and the consumer or the customer, right? And these are all different levers that you need to make sure that work really well and that you can learn how to pull and push and kind of see what you can change and how effective you do that. See, if you're stuck to one way of doing things, that's really going to hurt you in the long run. And you got to learn new ways of doing things. And these are kind of the levers that really affect this relationship between the product, market, and consumer. So, why manage these products? Well, honestly, so often I think organizations really struggle with um, understanding this relationship between the product and the consumer, and they honestly will might make a mistake. Part of that communication I talked about before. You might communicate to the consumer, oh, you can get two dog bones for $1. That's a way to communicate through price the value of what you made and offering more value. Like again, that word value is really important because it's so subjective, and it ties back into understanding customers. Putting yourself in their shoes and understanding what they value is really critical to this relationship and the success of your business or your SaaS product or whoever you might be working for, or even your management. You need to understand what your management values and always speaking to that. And another part could be functionality. Again, how long did this dog bone last? Did it really taste good for the consumer? that could even be a preference thing or a thing where you have an overlap with functionality, design, and form, right? Now, the next thing I want to talk about is why we're managing these things is that a company or organization is always making decisions. And a company at a really high level with hundreds of thousands of people can't make a decision on a product alone. It's too difficult. And that's why product management exists in the first place, right? Product management is just collecting the information, getting critical insights to decision makers, or some product managers get yeah, if things go really great, you get to make some decisions and impact things, but your decision has outcomes. One decision could lead you to lower revenue in red here, or you might get to greater revenue, or make a new product out of your existing product, or extend the product line. So it's really just about understanding customers and then helping people understand those customers better, and then getting the organization aligned on making a decision at the end of the day. And all those factors we talked about earlier, like who they are, the design, the functionality, even the delivery of that experience is really important. That can really hurt you or make you really. And then finally, you know, to kind of help keep it concise, it really just comes back to this. What does the customer or consumer care about? Right? If I say, oh, I got a big dog bone and it looks so small, that's really disappointing for the customer, isn't it? Right? And all you need to really ask yourself every time you're working on a product or developing a product is, what does the consumer, what does the customer care about? What kind of value are we giving to them? And that's really what CEOs really think about, and what product managers are thinking about. What are we making that gives them value and that we can also make revenue out of that step? And the thing is like this disconnect can happen all the time. I'm going to show you an example from Blizzard. So Blizzard made Diablo Immortal, and originally it came out on mobile, and they were only going to sell it on mobile. They weren't going to make it for PC. And I'm going to show you this clip. And
in this, is there any plans to make this playable on PC, or is this strictly mobile forever?
Are there any? The current plan is to be on mobile, both Android and iOS. We don't have any plans at the moment to do PC. Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah, you guys all have phones, right?
And you can see that they clearly had a disconnect from what the consumers wanted as a PC gamer to what they were providing on mobile. They just said, don't you guys have phones? Which, communicated and came off as a little tone deaf, right? And that's the thing. There's other ways products can fail. We have hundreds of startups that fail. This is the Juicerino here, which people could just squeeze the juice packet, and I didn't really need this machine to do it for me, right? And then that's an example of failure in functionality. When you have something that's functional, great, it works, but you have to compare that against like a substitute. And the substitute was me as a person just squeezing a juice bag versus like paying a $400, $200 machine to do it for me, right? Or design, the design of Concord just did not appeal to the average person in a market that was already saturated with team-based shooters like Overwatch and other team-based shooters I can't think of at the time. But again, that things like functionality, design, and market competition play a real role. And the thing I want you to take away at the end of this video is that humans are really bad at understanding each other. They fail to put themselves in the other person's shoes, and that's why you see so much, I would say, suffering in the world, right? We fail to take the time to really understand where another person is really coming from. And the thing is that, with the development of software and everything is becoming more democratized, right? Easier to access, everyone can do it, everyone can learn, for example, now through YouTube. We have the empathy economics, right? And see, like with software, they pour thousands of dollars, millions of dollars into understanding you And that has created an economy of empathy. You know, we want you to have the best experience possible so you can buy. And there's some consequences to that, of course, and more things to consider ethically. And I think I have my own thoughts about what we call the empathy economy and kind of some downsides, or yeah, honestly, there's some really great benefits out of that too, possibly, if things are done right. Um, I, but I think that again, that's another for a video. All you need to understand is people are really bad at understanding each other, and your job as a product manager is to help everyone understand each other and get aligned and kind of get on the same page about what are we building. Did what is what we built effective or even good for that person, right? Did that really help us? And then finally, I think for my next video, I'm going to talk about the product life cycle. This is a very common chart to think about products. You know, when I make a product, it's only going to sell so many units, right? When they have a new version of World of Warcraft, they're only going to sell 5 to 10 million units, maybe. It's an estimation or a guess, right? And then that product will go through a life cycles of ups and downs. And that can be true for detergent, to software, to cars or vehicles. You know, there's that initial growth and maturity and then the decline. So I'm going to talk about that in my next video. I got this chart for Roman Pinchler, so I just want to give him credit there. Always cite your sources, really important. I'll go more in depth in my opinions about this chart and what it means and things like that, and some recommendations. But thanks for watching, guys. If you have any feedback for me, I would really appreciate that. Like and subscribe. Also, get a free copy of my ebook. I'm working on an ebook. If you sign up by August, you'll get a free copy through the email list. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.